Fans, we are back live with another edition of the Cheap Heat Productions Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling. Morris is off tonight, but we're pleased to have back on after his first appearance about 5 months ago. We received a ton of positive fan feedback, questions, everything that the fans have asked we're going to attempt to get to tonight because we quite frankly ran out of time last time. And I would be speaking of the one and only Jonny Candido. Jonny, thanks for coming back tonight, sir.
Yo, anytime, brother. It's always great coming on your show, and I'll answer any questions you have, and thank you for having me.
Well, we certainly appreciate it. I know it seemed like we, in the first hour last time, seemed to scratch the surface, but right off the bat, I wanted to ask you about comments made by one Dirty Dutch Mantel recently in one of his broadcast forums about, he brought you up and apparently was talking about the relationship between Chris and Tammy, and that you had some sort of hard feelings about it, which seems to be obvious to me. But if you could flush that out for the audience, that would be appreciated.
Well, yeah, of course. It you know how the YouTube feed goes. It gives you things, and one popped up with Dutch talking about Tammy, and he was talking about it, and he's like, yeah, I talked to Johnny, and he has some harsh words for her, and rightfully so. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, I'm like, yeah, I have beyond harsh words for her. Like, the harsh isn't the right harsh words isn't the right. I have very harsh feelings because of what she put my brother through. Basically, right now, what's happening with her is she's trying to work the prison into letting her get out and seek like outside help because she thinks she has a blood clot or something. And she's a freaking heel. Of course, she's always the victim. Her freaking, she said her legs blowing up. I didn't read the article. I just heard what they had to say about it. And yeah, I have harsh words for her because she did a lot of terrible things to my brother. And and there's a couple things that I wanted to talk about regarding that. Like, when people were like, critiquing their relationships and talking about, I understand that they were both public figures, but in reality, they were kids. My brother was born in 1972. So in 95, 96, 97, he was 22, 23, 24. And who knows what what's going on in a relationship at that time, or, who knows about, and my brother's one focus was wrestling. But I just find, like I said, I understand they're in the public eye, but it just seems like, critiquing a relationship like that, not on Dutch's part, just I mean how everyone did. I'm just like, wow, me being 42 now, and my brother being 24, 23, 25 when all this stuff was happening, it's totally different because I looked up him like he was, this much older, wiser person. But yeah, I have a lot of harsh words for her and harsh feelings toward her. And toward the end of my brother's life, he was heading toward a breakup, and I know that I can tell you a lot of stories about that, if you want me to. But if you want to start with questions first. But yeah, Dutch had me thinking, when I saw him, when I saw his him and that fellow do that interview, and I was like, yeah, I do have harsh feelings toward her, and I'm gonna have harsh words toward her because she did my brother wrong in a lot of ways, and he hid it and I hid it. And we would always pick up the pieces or swipe it under the rug or come up with a bullshit excuse for why she acted a certain way and always be in like damage control mode anytime she was around, So that's why toward the end of my brother's life, it was always just me and him and whoever else together. And she wasn't with us because like nobody wanted to use her. And then it'd be me, him, whoever on the road would have the greatest time. But anytime if she came on a trip with us, it would turn into freaking mayhem because she liked that. She was one of those people that thrived off chaos. She liked the chaos, causing a scene. So, I mean, I know I don't need to tell you guys that she was a freaking piece of work, but um, yeah, I think it's harsh words isn't even enough. I despise her, to be honest, because if she was not in his life, he'd be alive right now, to put it quite bluntly.
Yeah, and perhaps now is a good opportunity to have you address those ever present innuendos around their relationship, because
Oh,
one of the major questions that everybody seems to ask is was Chris down with the shenanigans that she was engaging in? Was he ever going to send her on her way, so to speak? So maybe you could address that through those stories that you had.
sure. Yeah. No, he was never down with the shenanigans. I think he turned a blind eye and he would have like cognitive dissonance. Like he would always say, like, oh, dude, it's a locker room full of guys. Of course there's going to be rumors, like things like that. But then towards the end of his life, when, he wasn't taking anything, he wasn't doing anything. All he did was wrestle. Me and him would just train, wrestle. We'd be together 24/7. Let's say on a, all right, so this is how this kind of started with us. Me and him we'd go up and work for Mike Sparta and other promoters up in the Boston area. And one day we came back on a Sunday and Jason Knight had a show. So we went to Jason's show, we stayed over the night, and we came back Monday. So the next time the two of us were out together, just doing indies on the weekends, he's like, "Dude, I don't feel like going home." Meaning to his and Tammy's house. He's like, "You want to just go back to, you know, our room at mom and dad's and get some food?" I'm like, "Yeah, hell yeah, come on." And so what we started doing was, no matter where we were, we could be in Virginia. We get on the turnpike. He's like, "Dude, I don't really feel like going home right now. You want to just go by mom and dad's and I'll tell Tammy Jason Knight had a show on Sunday." We're like, "Yep, let's do it." So we go up into our bedroom. We'd order food, and it's so funny because the two of our personalities. So in the Dark Side of the Ring, they showed that little that office that we have with all the different pictures and stuff.
Yes.
Attached to that is like a hangout room that has like a futon, a couch, like a big TV, like a whole bunch of stuff. It's like the fourth floor of my parents' house. It was his when he was growing up, and then when he left, it was mine. But now it's ours. And then we'd get back to our parents' house. We'd throw in Goodfellas or Godfather Part Two, and we'd argue about who would get the futon or the sofa, but not in the way you'd think. I'm like, "Dude, you're more beat up than me. Lay on the futon." He's like, "I don't want the futon. I like the sofa." Like we were trying to give each other the more comfortable thing to lay on. You know what I'm saying? But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so on Sundays he would just be like, "Dude, I don't want to go home." And so we, like I said, we'd hang here, we'd order food, or we'd go out. So his one friend owned a restaurant in a neighboring town, Belmar, and so mind you too. Again, my brother's 32, 33, and we live in like the area we live in. Everyone knows everyone. So when people would see my brother out, who they went to high school, and a lot of the girls would, and one in particular really, really liked him, and she was beautiful, and we know their family, and she wouldn't even like rib him about his pants. Like, 'cause if we go to the gym, he'd wear those like parachute pants, and so we'd go, we'd hang out. Him and her would be talking, I'd be hanging out, whatever. We'd be like, "Cook, like, why don't you go with her, dude?" He's like, "Oh, I can't." I'm like, "Yes, you can." Like you're not married, you're not, like you don't have kids together. Why can't you do it? He's like, "Oh, I brought her into my business." But that started getting. I feel like a breakup was imminent because he didn't want to go home. And then when she did come with us to the gym or on the road, it would be chaos. And even in the gym, she would create chaos. And she didn't like that he was like sober like this and doing all these things while she just kind of You know, he was basically either it was, you know, we were going to do something, but the second he got home, he was going to just get nagged on. And he didn't like that. And an example of something she would do would be like, say me, my brother, and some of our friends are out lifting. All right. This is a story that happened. Um, she came to the gym just to hang out, just because she was there. And one of my buddies was like stretching with this bar, you know, and the bar came by her face, and she goes, "Oh my god!" Pretends it hits her in the eye, falls on the ground, cell in her eye, you know, going, "Oh my god, hit me in the eye, hit me in the eye! Call the ambulance! Call the ambulance!" And we all saw what happened. And my brother's like, can I see her eye? You know, she's like, "No, call the damn ambulance! Take me to the hospital." This is at like 10 o'clock at night. So we get in the car and we're going to the hospital. All right. Whole time at the hospital, I'm sorry, whole time in the car ride, selling her eye, not letting anybody look at it. We get to the hospital. She goes in. Now it's 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Finally, she comes out. No more selling the eye. She goes, "Oh, all I got for that was Ultram." Rips up the prescription. Let's go. She just went there to try to get pain pills. So it was like anytime she was around us, it was just like a buzzkill and a downer. And I think, again, as young as my brother was, he started seeing that I don't think he wanted to be with this person anymore. He felt loyalty the same way I felt loyalty after my brother passed away to make sure she got places and not get arrested. And you know, it was you know, we're we're loyal. You know, by nature, both of us are very loyal. But for me, once I found out that she really did cheat, that was it. I'm not loyal to her anymore. She wasn't loyal to my brother, so how am I going to be loyal to her? So you know, the last time I saw her, she freaking, attacked me because she was hammered, and I just left, and I never saw her again. But yeah, I say all that to say that toward the end, had my brother been alive, I could have seen the two of them breaking up.
Well, it's one of those things where hindsight is 2020. But you touched on the fact that she's a heel, and without getting into the merits or lack thereof of her health situation in the institution, she clearly has a significant personality disorder, and this bit about requesting outside treatment, blah blah blah, that seems to be in line with some of the behaviors that you've seen, such as this story that you just mentioned. What do you think her prospects are for, lack of a better term, rehabilitation, to come out and be a pro-social and productive member of society?
Absolutely zero. If they took her out and took her to an outside hospital, she's going to drink the bottle of hand sanitizer, break out the window, jump out like Hannibal Lecter, take somebody's face off, drive the fucking ambulance away, and then, be gone living on some other Mark's couch. Like, that's what she's going to do. Like, I know her. You know, and she did another, she did a prison interview prior to this, and, you know, it's so hard. My cousin Vinny sent it to me, and both of us were like, "Oh, it's hard to even listen to." She's like, "Yeah, in prison right now, I'm learning to be a hairstylist, and I'm learning Italian. I'm doing so. When I get out, I'm gonna open up an Italian restaurant, and I'm gonna have a hair salon across the street from." She's just like, but for her to be an actual member of society, no, because even before the business, she was always a freaking handful. And then everyone knows that when my brother was alive, she was a handful. So this whole thing of, my saintly husband, Chris Candido, who I love so much, passed away, and that's what made me go off the rails. That's bullshit. And I think everybody who knows anything knows that it's bullshit. So and she's in prison, and rightfully in prison. You don't just get to go to an outside hospital. It's not like you're going to a healthcare provider out of network. You're in prison for murder. You don't just get to and I think she still has that mindset of you know, she has that personality disorder. That non-social. I think it really is like a psychopathic personality. If you go down the psychopath checklist, like she like literally has like every single one. Like, she knows how she's supposed to feel, but she really doesn't have those feelings.
Mm, mm,
She's quick to like kiss or kill. She lives a parasitic lifestyle. She'll leech off people. She knows what people want to hear, and she can work them. She's a freaking psycho, you know. And I just, I wished the only two physical fights me and my brother ever had was because of her. But we argued about her a lot, and a lot of the times I would just have to say, "All right, dude, fine," because he was my older brother. And what do you do with your older brother?
You've outlined, here and in other interviews, a lot of you know poor behavior, for lack of a better term, that she exhibited over the years, and one of the factors in her sentencing was the lack of remorse for taking this innocent individual's life. Do you think that she's capable of recognizing the error of her ways and making amends, or is that beyond her because of her
No,
personality?
that's totally beyond her. She's the victim. She's the one. She didn't run into that guy's car. He had a heart attack, and that caused her to hit the car because he stopped, like, or whatever she said. She will never do it, and if she does, it's not going to be sincere. It'll just be a work because, like I said, she knows how to play the victim, and she'll play the victim until the day she dies. And if she ever comes out with some kind of apology, it's going to be bullshit because then she's going to tell somebody, "Ha ha, I worked this person." Like I've seen her do a million times.
Mm,
You
mm,
know, like it's not. It's crazy. It sounds cliche to say that like opposites attract, but like my brother
mm,
was the most nice, genuine person in the world, and how did he
mm,
ever find himself wrapped up with this woman that was,
mm,
like poison like that? Like
mm.
she really was. And like I said, I'm sorry to go on a tangent, but I just
No,
feel very. But you know what it is? My brother's not here to guard his reputation, and I love my brother more than anything. So it's I feel like I have to guard it for him. Like he died when he was 33. All that crazy stuff when they were going on, they were kids. And again, it's fair game. They were public figures. I'm a public figure coming on right here, right now. People can say whatever they want about me, but in hindsight, they were just kids going through things. And had my brother, I guess, not been blinded by loyalty or blinded by love, and I think that fog was starting to clear toward the end of his life.
well, unfortunately for Tammy, the individuals that assess behavior in the correctional setting are professionals, and so are the state and federal parole boards. So she may have an uphill climb looking towards release in the future. But to put a bow on her as a topic per se, I wanted to ask you: do you and you do a great job keeping Chris's legacy alive, especially for those fans that were younger and maybe didn't get a chance to see his work at the time. Do you think this provides, with her hopefully being away for a long time and less and less attention being paid to her, do you think it's an opportunity to separate his body of work and his legacy from her so he can get some of the credit that he deserves?
Absolutely, absolutely, because she's not out there to say, you know, she put it like this: an argument with the two of them, it was always because he brought her into this wrestling business. But if anything good happened, it was because she was so great at this stuff. Like, um, short answer, yes. I think people will be able to separate the two of them and see his dedication to the business. And a lot of the boys who, who are top guys now, who he helped on their way up, they appreciate everything he did. And it is. I hate that it took a tragedy for someone else, but I like that they're separated now. And the only time that they're brought up together is when you know, she mentions him and whoever interviews her from jail. But there needs to be a separation between my brother, the professional wrestler, and his body of work and his commitment, and then all the shenanigans and bullshit that went on behind the scenes with her and cheating and him, freaking out because of it, and or not knowing and did he know, and like his body of work, his commitment to the wrestling business since he was 10 years old, and how much he achieved, at such a young age, really speaks for itself. And I like that. And I think people are really seeing that, you know.
Mm, mm, most definitely. One issue that I've always wondered about as a fan of your brother is his tenure in WCW in 2000. And last night, Vice aired the first episode in I guess a mini series on who killed WCW and that territory that I'm interested in to see if they can put a fresh spin on it, given all the work that's been done in that regard. But do you have an idea why, when he started off in that New Blood storyline, and then he was with the Triple Threat with Bigelow and Douglas, why that tenure was cut so short?
I think so. At that time, there were a lot of things going on behind the scenes, as in like, um, they lost the house that they had. Um, they they moved. There was a lot of like chaos going behind the scenes from my brother's standpoint, and I think WCW was an opportunity, and or I'm sorry, for him, he wanted to see ECW work. When he got to WCW, it was kind of a payday, but a great payday. But he always loved wrestling, no matter where he was. I mean, he'd give his all. But I heard things, later on, like in the locker room, there were some, again, shenanigans going on, and they found New Bane in the women's locker room and said it was Tammy's, and it actually turned out it wasn't. It was somebody else's. But I think it was more just like controversy stuff that stopped them from that stopped him and the Triple Threat from really growing in WCW. And also at the time, just as a side note, you read my brother's book, right? Now, after we talked. So
Yeah.
this is like the time when I'm in high school, and anytime he was on the road, I would have like giant parties at his house. So I was kind of more like, during that time, I was more interested in like having parties and like, you know, trying to hook up with chicks than I was like hanging out at wrestling shows. So I can't speak exactly to what was going on, but I know that during WCW, that was that was not a great time for him as far as drama outside the ring. So I think that that definitely hurt whatever was going on. I mean, they recognized his talent. They put the cruiserweight title on him. Um, but I think there's a lot of drama going on outside the ring.
Mhm.
If that makes sense.
Mhm. In terms of your own career, were you were in TNA, and you were in a tag team elimination tournament with Alex Shelley, and a fan wanted to know if there was ever any plans for you to sign with TNA, and what your thoughts are presently in terms of what appears to be at least a working relationship between TNA and WWE, with Jordan Grace being in the Royal Rumble and also on NXT.
So at that exact time when I did that, the plan was for me to go out and be Alex Shelley's tag partner, right? Um, my mother owns a not owns my mom's like the manager of a doctor's office, so I had two identical like blue duffel bags. I had my gear in one, I had clothes in another, and I was at the building earlier, and they're like, you're gonna work tonight. Go grab your gear. So I went back, and also at the time, to be completely honest, after my brother died, I was messed up. I was taking pills. Um, but I got back to my hotel. I grabbed the duffel bag. I looked at it for a second. I thought it was my gear. I came back. When I got to the building, it was my regular clothes. I'm like, oh shit! I don't have time to go back to get my stuff, to get my gear. And they're like, all right, we'll just have you come out of the audience. So that's why it happened like that. Prior to that, when my brother was there, he's like, yeah, dude, look at you down here, me and you, it'll be freaking great. And I'm just like, bro, I'm like, right now, make it about you. You do good. You do your thing. I'll do my indies. You know, when I level up, then I'll come there. But just please be selfish, for yourself for a little bit here. And then, I'll come up in due time. So that night, like, even after it happened, I did the run and everything. I talked to Shane. And I'm like, what'd you think? He's like, dude, I thought it was the shit. You should have done the diving headbutt or something. I'm like, I know. I got the freaking wrong bag. Like, I had to come out of the freaking audience in my clothes. So I kicked myself over that one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I got to work for WWE, and Balls was always like, me and you, we're going to be a tag team. Like after that whole match, again, a lot of things were going on personally because that was after my brother just passed away. But as far as TNA, I was in a weird space because I was wrestling full time, but my family was so against it that for me to go with a major company, I would pretty much get disowned. Like my mom said, if you continue to do this, I can't go through with them with another son again. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I can't go through it again. So I had one foot in, one foot out, and you really can't do that in the wrestling business, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that whole thing came about.
Was was your and I happened to see your brother work in Orlando. I believe it was a 6 man with the Naturals, but he had that incredible match with AJ Styles. Was he very? It seemed he was on the midst or the precipice of a career renaissance. Did he have plans to do the TNE thing full time and maybe get a shot with New York as himself?
Oh yeah, well, we were in New York before TNA.
Yeah.
So this when Tom Pritchard was an agent, and me and him went there. Like they called us to go backstage and hang out. And this is something I've never told anyone, but so me and him, I think we were there like 3 times before we went to TNA. So the first couple times, I would go hang by the ring, listening to Art. Like I would listen to Arn Anderson, and he would kind of like hold court and you know talk with guys. So I'd hang around the ring. My brother would politic in the back, um, and there was we were there twice hanging out. I think it was the second time, um, and they're like, yeah, Chris, we're looking for you to do a dark match, but we don't have anybody for you to work with. And the Brooklyn Brawler was our agent, and he said to me, he goes, you want to work with your brother tonight? My brother's looking at me going, like shaking his head, yes. And I'm like, I didn't bring my gear. He's like, you didn't bring your fucking gear. I'm like, no, I didn't think I was going to be able to work tonight. And I never told anyone that. I felt so like ashamed that I didn't bring my gear that night. And because my brother and him both like looked like what the fuck. So it's one of those coulda, shoulda, wouldas. Like, you know, I thought I was just gonna drive him there. He's gonna do his deal. We'll go in there together. He'll politic. I'll go out by the ring, listen to Arn Anderson, say what up to Paul London and Carlito, whatever. And then, but TNA was the first ones to say, you know, here, sign a contract, and we want you to work with us. And obviously, as a working professional wrestler, he needs to get paid. Like he didn't even like when when you're in the back at WWE, you get paid to be an extra. I think you get like a. I think when I would do it, like, because I would hang out there a lot, and like Sandman or Sabu or something, be like, kid, get a payday. So I'd go over and they give me like $300. My brother wouldn't take it. He's like, I'm not taking a payday, even though, they tell me I should. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to wait until this whole thing pans out. But then TNA were the first ones that came and like made him an offer to work there. So yeah, his career was on an like a definite big upswing. Like like really fast. Like the last year of his life was, and he was just so happy and loved what he was doing so much. So that's why when someone dies and people say they have closure, the word closure, it seems like it means like a sense of like finality, and that it's like it's done and you're at peace with it. But with my brother, I don't feel that. Like his life got cut short, and it sucks because it happened for no reason. Like like there's no sense of like, okay, finality, you know, because there's so many things that could have gone differently. And so yeah, I hope I didn't go on too much of a tangent, but that's like kind of how I feel about that situation and why I'm still out here. Again, my brother's his when I think about his when people talk about I have to I have to guard his reputation. And who's going to do that besides me? His younger brother who loved him more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I debunk the shit Tammy says, and I come on here and tell you what was really going on at these times.
Well, that's I think that's important for historical purposes. A fan actually sent a question. Speaking of polarizing people, wanted to know with this Janelle Grant lawsuit dominating the headlines involving Vince and the twists and turns there. One of the characters involved in this allegedly is Johnny Ace, and he started off apparently, you know, siding, for lack of a better term, with Ms. Grant, and then now they're apparently back on the same page. And the fan wanted to know if you had any experience or knowledge dealing with Johnny Ace in terms of his his interactions with
Well, I,
yourself and character.
well, I dealt with Johnny Ace a ton because he was the the head of talent or whatever. So anytime I'd be there, I'd obviously say hello to him, and when they would bring me there to wrestle, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, you're Candido's brother." Da 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 da. So yeah, I knew Johnny Ace. Basically, if it was a workplace, Johnny Ace was the boss. Is the vibe you get when you're back there, And I have some funny stories that I can't quite articulate because but um, the vibe I got from him was, yeah, he was the boss. He seemed like an all right fella. I didn't know him well enough to really speak on his character apart from being the head of talent, being the boss, and guy. And again, after I worked with Balls and Axel, he was super stoked about the match. He thought everything was really cool, and then um, again, he was nothing but cool to me. But I didn't know him like pick up the phone, give him a call, talk to him, know him. I knew him casually, and I mean, I've heard from people that he could be abrasive and he could be kind of a dick. But I didn't really know him like that. I guess I can see where he could be, but from personal experience, you know, he was all right.
In terms of that entity that is WWE, since we last talked, it's become clear that they're really framing it as separating themselves from McMahon, Vince, and framing the company as this is the Triple H era. What are your thoughts on this company moving forward away from the McMahon influence? And I know you've probably had some interactions with Triple H, so you could probably speak on his management capabilities anyway.
It's so hard to say because I don't follow wrestling anymore since I'm not in the wrestling world. Like you have to understand, like, and I'm sure you do. When you're in the business, you're in wrestling world. You know everything that's going on. Everybody's gossiping to everyone. It's not. It's a different world that you like. That you're in where you know you don't watch the news. You hear wrestling news, and that's what you talk about. Um, it's going to be hard for Vince to distance himself from the WWE and someone else take it over. I don't, as far as Triple H's management capabilities, I'll tell you what, he seems like a cool enough guy that, and he loves the business. Like, again, I try to be pragmatic and I don't like to talk bad about people. Um, so I think he'll do all right because the boys are going to respect him, because he's not just someone. He's, you know, he's been out there. He's worked. He's, you know what I mean. Like people get more respect when they've actually been there and done that. But it's going to be hard to separate Vince from the WWE. Like, can you smarten me up? What's even going on with them right now?
In terms of the lawsuit,
And, yeah. So yeah, can you break it down? Like, so I'll tell you what I know. Vince is accused of sexually assaulting or something a former intern. That's pretty much where I'm at.
yeah, with Johnny Ace being named as taking part in some of the coerced sexual escapades, and then that company money was used to hush her up through a NDA, and then the terms of the NDA weren't lived up to by McMahon. So she filed a lawsuit, and now the latest portion of it, and they've gone back and forth, and he provided evidence that she was his girlfriend, and vice versa. She provided evidence through text messages that it was coercive, that it was an abuse of power situation. But now apparently Ms. Grant's attorneys have asked that the lawsuit be stayed for a while to provide further information. Or the other rumor was online that this is a civil matter, and there's some thought that it's going to transition to providing more evidence so that criminal charges could be brought against McMahon. And I'm assuming Johnny Ace too, because he was named as allegedly being involved
Like he was physically there doing that. They were
in
like,
three ways and that sort of thing.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I didn't know all that stuff. Jesus. Um, well, I mean, what can Vince do? He has to step away, and who's the heir to the throne? I mean, what about his family? Is Shane there? Is Stephanie there?
No, Shane apparently after that Royal Rumble where he took all the heat for booking himself as a world slayer and et cetera, he's not been around. But Stephanie was reintroduced at this year's WrestleMania. She came out and cut a promo about the new era. I'm not sure if she has any sort of official capacity with the company or not, but she was brought out.
I'm sure she's still a heavy, just in everybody's mind because she's, Vince's daughter and Hunter's wife. Um, I think the WWE is a well-oiled machine that will continue to go on, and I think Triple H is capable. I think he is because he took NXT and he kind of made that his baby, and it's grown. People watch it. and like it. And you know, whether you like the guy or you don't, he definitely has a passion for the business, and he loves it. So, just for me, again, you know more than I do about this whole situation. I know them more as my brother's friends. Like I used to be, I was hanging around the WWE locker room when I was like 11, 12, 13. So I've known these guys like my entire life. So,
Mm.
but I think the WWE is it's a household name, and I think Hunter's capable. But it's I mean I'm not going to say I can't believe that Vince didn't abuse his authority, because I could definitely believe that, and coerce people, you know, through money, power, whatever. Um, I think all people that have billions like that at their dispense kind of feel like they're untouchable, you know, and feel like the rules don't apply to them. So, you know, maybe he's been getting away with this shit forever. Who knows? Maybe he could have been a
Well,
creep. Like I've never seen him interact with. I This is how I know Vince. Hey Vince, how you doing? Hey Johnny, great to see you. Fantastic. You know, hug, handshake. Like I don't. It's not like we hung out, drank beers, and talked about chicks. Like so,
mm,
like
mm.
anything I would tell you is just from firsthand knowledge or speculation. You know, so I just try to tell you what I know for sure, 100%. You know.
Well, there certainly are allegations dating back to the mid '80s, but everybody's entitled to a presumption. Oh, we lost Johnny. A presumption of innocence until proven guilty. He's back.
Oh, sorry
Lost
about
you for
that.
a sec, man, but we're back. I'm gonna hit a not a fan question, a friend of the show's question. Guardian of Chaos wants to know if you remember any of uh, his road buddies, John Diamond, Tony DeVito, Mike Bell, or Giant Primo. All good guys.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, most definitely. I remember all those guys. Yeah, they were all super cool. Um, Everyone that I've met or known through wrestling, you know, they're really super cool guys and have always been helpful. And I mean, I'm sure me being my brother's younger brother helped, but you know, everyone has been super cool. You know, um, who's the DeVito fella? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his
Tony,
name. And
Tony, one of the Baldies.
yeah, dude, those guys always super cool, super nice. Um, you know, if I'd be in the ring bouncing around, they would help me with certain things. Hit a rope, you know, hit the ropes like this. You only want to take 2 steps. Like all those guys are super cool, super helpful, funny. You know, the whole group of wrestlers. Like when I was coming up, you know, with my brother as a younger guy, they were very, again, like a fraternity. They were like a very eclectic group of people, and you know, and it seemed like everyone wanted to help everyone because it was like a closed. Now it seems like it's more open. Like anybody now can be a professional wrestler. Where back then it was kind of like a closed society. It was like the mob. Like you had to almost be like born into it or have been around it your entire life. And you know, and you have to know the little things. Like you have to shake everyone's hand when you get into the locker room, and you have to say goodbye to everyone before you leave. Like these little things that you're not going to learn at a wrestling school, but you're going to learn from being around. And someone who wasn't schooled like that might not say hello to everyone and might not say goodbye, and people perceive that he's a dick, but he just doesn't know that he's supposed to do that. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things that guys like that and my brother and them taught me to always do. I don't, you know, I don't care who it is. You have to say hello to everyone, even if you saw him last night. Say goodbye to everyone. We're all respectful, and we're all here together making money, and this is what we're doing. And we're putting our bodies on the line. We trust each other, and again, it's a big fraternity that looks out for each other.
Absolutely. A fan on social media wanted me to ask you about your thoughts and his own thoughts, Chris's own thoughts about his time in XPW and that whole promotional situation of instability at the time.
So I was there for a lot of it. His thoughts on it were, it was kind of funny and outlandish because, like, you know, like we'd go out to California and we'd visit one of the boys at their house, and they would just have like stacks of fucking porn videos everywhere because a lot of the boys, like as a side hustle, would like sell porn DVDs. So it was like everywhere you went was just porn, 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 naked chicks, fucking. Um, so his stint in XPW, I'd say, in the ring, of course, he was serious about his wrestling, but I think to both of us, listen to this. I'll tell you a story. I don't think anybody's heard. When XPW would come to Philly and run the arena, everyone, wrestlers and porn stars, would all stay on, I want to say the third floor, right, of the Marriott. And every room door would be open and there would be a party going on in every single room. And you could just go from room to room to room. Certain people would be sniffing coke. Certain people would be partying. There'd be naked chicks all over the place. I remember walking into a room. Jerry Tootie, who was the wall, and Danny Doring were having a chopping contest, right? They were chopping each other with their shirts off, right? And then Danny Doring started like dancing around with this porn chick, and she fucking started biting his fucking nipple off, and he started screaming. Like, I can't explain. Like every and then I go over. I say what's up to Chris Chetty and his buddies. We party in their room for a little bit, and then I remember on Sunday mornings because of the football, I would my brother really wasn't for all the crazy parties. He'd come by, say hello. Like when I say every single room, it wasn't just XPW wrestlers. It was XPW and like every indie guy too would know the party was there. So every room was just full of people on the entire floor. Like I said, I think it was the third floor. All wrestlers, naked women, blow, booze, and so my brother would just like go back to the room. Let's say maybe at midnight. I would stay out all night. I'd tell my friends to come. We'd be hanging out. Um, I remember this one time. I was hustling at the time a little bit. Again, I was younger, 21, 22, and I had a bag of like 1,000 Vicodin ESs, and I would open. I would go in the room. I would take a handful, and I would just throw them in every room. Just throw fucking Vicodin. I think they were Vic 7.5, the Vicodin ESs, and I would just throw because the the guys I was dealing with at the time would just give me pharmacy 1,000 count bottles of everything, like Norcos, Somas, Viking S's. I'm like, I don't really like the Viking S's. I'm just gonna give them away to people, and I would just fucking open the door, throw Viking S's in every fucking room. ES means extra strength. They were, they were like these cubes.
Hmm.
But the XPW times, yeah, man, they were freaking crazy.
Was that the Marriott or the Travel Lodge?
No, the Marriott. It wasn't the Travel Lodge, and they had there was like a diner adjacent to it. And yeah, I remember sitting there with a bunch of the boys like shot out the next morning. I remember me, the guy who was Pogo the Clown, I forget his freaking name,
Mm.
the guy Chaos, like all just like sitting there waiting for the diner to open. And then other times, like I said, my brother would be asleep by 11, whatever. I'd be out partying, da 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 da, doing my thing. And then I'd come back and start trying to go to sleep. But then the football game would come on, and people would start coming to the hotel 6, 7 in the morning, with horns, drums, shit like that. I'm like, oh my god! So I wouldn't sleep for like all those nights because I'd be like running around, fucking, going to this room, that room, do a little blow, fucking. So the XBW times were like crazy, crazy party times. I mean, it was fun as hell, for me anyway. Again, in the elevator, women are just like completely naked, like naked chicks everywhere, and people having chopping contests. And again, chick tried to bite off Danny Doring's nipple. You could ask him
Yeah,
about that next time you see him.
you don't see that every day, do you? Now here's another fan question on social media that may be a variation on that theme, but a little bit different. And it's probably going to be difficult for you to narrow down too. But what backstage in ECW, either at the arena or other events, what was the wildest situation that you, and again to narrow this down, that you've ever seen or your brother ever saw?
Well, the wildest thing I ever saw was the brawl outside the ECW arena that Tammy started. Um, we were trying to get to our car. Me, a couple of my buddies, again, we're like teenagers. Um, we're trying to get to our car, and there's people from the bar next door, like all standing around our car. And Tammy, being Tammy, he's like, "Get away from my car, you fucking scumbags!" Like says something like that. My brother had just torn his bicep, so he had his arm in a sling. All right, so Tammy yells at these people, and they're like, "All right, lady, whatever." And she's like, "The fuck away from us," whatever they said. And then finally, they had enough of her shit, and they threw a drink in Tammy's face. Here comes my brother, one arm in a sling, and he throws like a left cross. Boom, clocks the guy. The other guy's friend, boom, clocks my brother. I'm thinking about jumping in, but I'm like, I'm fucking 14. So I fucking run back to the locker room. And the first two people I see is Too Cold Scorpio and Tracy Smothers. And I'm like, my brother and Tammy are fighting outside. It's like, they fucking fight all the time. I'm like, no, no, no. I'm like, fucking people are beating the shit out of them. So those guys ran out. I got more guys. I grabbed Bubba. I grabbed Devon. I'm telling Bammer. I'm telling everyone. So I get back outside. The first thing I see is Tommy Rich has a guy in a side headlock, right? And he's pulling him away. And I think I'm like, all right, he's got it under control. Devon runs over to the guy that Tommy Rich has in a headlock and just starts beating this fucking guy's face in. And then Tracy, poof, 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 knocking people out. Fucking Too Cold Scorpio, pow, 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 pow. The wrestlers just cleaning house. It was like seeing something out of a movie. They beat the shit out of all these guys. That was definitely the craziest because like I said, I just remember that the thing that sticks in my mind the most is when I came back out, I see Mayhem and I see like one of the main guys that started it getting led away by Tommy Rich in a side headlock. I'm like, okay, things are calm. And then Devon runs up to said guy who's in a headlock and he's just like, "Kapoof, kapoof, kapoof," and then everybody just beats the shit out of all these guys that fucked with my brother and Tammy. So I have to say that was probably the wildest thing that I saw, that I saw.
Sounds like Bill Watts would have approved. Rick is asking if you've ever met the man who is coincidentally coming to Great North Wrestling June 29th right here in Napanee, Ontario for a rare appearance in Canada. And I would be speaking about the legendary Pretty Paul Roma.
Paul Roma, huh? I'm trying to think. Uh, no, I'm mixing him up with something else. I'm mixing him up with Tom Brandy. No, I've never met Pretty Paul Roma. He was with Rick Martel together. No, weren't they tag team?
No, he
Rick,
was with, he had a number of successful tag teams. The first being the Young Stallions with Jimmy Powers, then Power and Glory with Hercules Hernandez and
oh,
Slick.
okay, okay.
And then he was a horseman in WCW, and then with Paul Orndorff. That's
All right.
pretty
Yeah, yeah,
wonderful.
yeah. You know what? To be honest, I'm sure I've met him and shook his hand and said hello, but I don't have any great Paul Roma stories. Not like I have, Devon, Tommy Rich stories. So,
Fair enough. Fair enough. We're looking forward to having him up here.
oh,
Here's a
awesome.
here's a deep cut though, and it's unfortunately not very positive. We won't end on this one, but do you have any memories of working with? And this is a hardcore ECW fan who asked this one. Rock and Rebel in 2007, and any thoughts on that messed up situation?
Um, I don't know about the messed up situation, but I do remember with Rock and Rebel because when did I work with him? It was earlier.
2007.
No, it was earlier than that. A
Okay.
lot earlier because he was like one of the first people I worked with. So how I got brought in, my first, I want to say, I normally say 10 or 15, but maybe I'm embellishing. My first 7 matches were just against my brother. And then I worked with Balls. Then I worked with their friend Paulie. Like I said, um, it's easier to work with someone. Like like how I trained, I would take bumps in the ring. I'd hit the fucking ropes. Um, and my brother, one day was just like, me and you are working today. So I just kind of got thrown right into the fire. So I worked with people I knew, and I think the first one of the first people I worked with that wasn't my brother or Balls or like any of the guys I knew was that Rock and Rebel fella, and we had a decent match. And I remember later on that night we came out. Um, Not we, me meaning my brother was working with the missing link, and I jumped in on that match too. Um, but what's the situation with Rock and Rebel?
It's pretty bad, man. About 2018 or 17 and around there, I believe he did a murder suicide deal with his wife.
Oh, he's gone. He's done. Oh, yo,
Yeah,
shit.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I mean, I remember working with him. Um, there was nothing that specifically sticks out as good or bad. It was kind of I see my name on the paper in the locker room, me versus Rock and Rebel.
Mm.
We went, had our match. That's kind of it. Um, wow. Did he say why? Was he? Well,
Well,
did he ever get like past the Indies? Is that what he did for a career, or was he just like a weekend warrior kind of guy?
he did of course Eastern Championship Wrestling and Tri-State and ECW, but no, he opened a school and apparently he had some issues with CTE, and then had some domestic violent stuff before, and ended up. I think he was incarcerated a couple of times, but yeah, it was a bad situation.
I never got that domestic violence stuff. If I'm just speaking frankly, like if I watch on Cops and ladies like my husband's been beating on me, I'm like, how? Like, I was an amateur boxer too, but I'm like, dude, but my hands are the size of bricks. I can never punch a woman. Are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
Like, who the fuck does that? I guess
Well,
there are people who do, obviously, but
he was a very troubled individual, and a lot of people that worked with him didn't have much positive to say about him even before this. But anyway, another fan question before I give you a positive one to wrap up on, and maybe this is positive too, is Rick wants to know how Bubba, I guess Bubba Bully, was with you. Some have some good things to say about him, some don't.
oh, dude. So I've known Bubba for freaking ever. My brother bought an Oldsmobile Chiva for him in like 1994. Um, so with me and Bubba, one of Bubba's best friends owns a bar that's like down the street from from my house. I love Bubba to death. There were two times there were like a pull apart between me and him, but that was like years ago, like a decade ago. And then next time we saw each other, we just like gave each other a hug. Um, Last time I saw him, and he did. I remember seeing him maybe a year after my brother died, and at that bar, and he pulled me aside. He's like, "Kid," he's like, "whatever you're doing, stop doing what you're doing." I'm like, "I'm not doing anything." He's like, "I could see in your pupils. Stop doing, what the fuck you're doing. Please stop it." And then what's pretty crazy is um, my sister got married last September, right? And the rehearsal dinner was at this place in Belmar on the ocean called La Dolce Vita, and it was supposed to be like a private room, whatever. There was like however many people at a rehearsal dinner. There was maybe 50 people there, and then so we have our little gimmick, sectioned off, and there's a bar, and there's one person at the bar, and I look, and it's Bubba at the bar at my sister's rehearsal dinner for a wedding. So of course, I went up and I'm like, dude, I'm like, I got to tell you, I'm like, of all the people to see here tonight, like my sister's getting married in a week, and seeing you here, seeing one of my brother's friends here, this was after the dark side of the ring and everything. Because I'm like, dude, I just want to give you a hug. It's really cool to like see you here at this time specifically. And he's like, I like the dark side of the ring. I'm like, yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, and we gave each other a hug. No, dude, Bubba's super tight. I'm super cool with Bubba, and I have his back. Whatever, he's cool as hell. He never. Anytime he gave me a yelling at, I probably deserved it. So, but yeah, we're cool.
Well, man, we've really burned through another hour. Just a tremendous discussion again. But I wanted to wrap up with this question, and we sort of touched on it at the start about separating your brother's career and legacy from her and all that negativity. But if and again, you're doing a great job, doing interviews and your work on social media to get the career out there. But what would you like if you had to boil it down to like a statement as to who your brother was and what he should be remembered for, both professionally and personally? What would that be?
Who my brother was was the kindest, most affable, most helpful person in the world. In the ring, he was a workhorse. He would do anything to try to make the match better, even if it was just his own thinking. And he was so good. For instance, he would always want to take a damn suplex from the inside to the concrete, right? And I'm like, dude, you do that all the time. No, I'm not doing it. You're going to land on your ass and hurt yourself. And he would somehow finagle a way that he's in position that I have to suplex to the concrete. But that aside, as a person, I would just like my brother to be remembered as the kind, helpful, awesome guy he was, and for his body of work to be remembered. You know, he was a pure professional wrestler through and through. He loved the business, and everything he did in the match had a reason. And I'd like for him to be remembered as as one of the best who ever did it in the ring, because that was his passion, that was his love. He loved that more than anything, was the business of professional wrestling. And I would love for people, just to know how much he loved the business and how much he gave back. He would love to help young talent, that he saw. If anybody asked him to watch their match or critique their match or help them in a certain way, he would invite that kind of thing. He liked that because he wanted to see the business continue and grow, and have more places for the boys to work. And he said if he won the lottery, he'd open a place called Kayfabe Gardens where wrestlers could retire and everything's paid for. Like, that's all he cared about, was the boys and the business. And and like I said, just outside of the ring, just a super awesome guy that I still miss today, like crazy. You know, that's why I'm out here again, talking about him all the time, because I love him to death, and I still feel him around, obviously, but you know, so yeah, my brother was the man. That's how I could end it.
Yeah, I would definitely agree from a fan perspective, and I'm hopeful that as time goes on, he starts to get some of that credit that he deserves as one of the great ones in the ring, but also a very quality human being in a difficult business. But Jonny, where can the fans find you on social media and keep up with your posts, etc.?
All right, so I just got an Instagram recently. So uh Johnny Candido. I wonder if I should just check it right now. I think I'm JonnyCandido. Johnny Candido, no H. It's either Johnny Candido 118 or Johnny Candido 18. And then I'm on Twitter, um, Johnny Candido 118. Um, and yeah, find me on Twitter or Instagram. If you just hit Johnny Candido, you'll find me. And if you say something cool, I'll repost it. And you know, um, uh, my my Twitter I started a while ago, so that's grown pretty well, and I have a lot of great following, and that's where I get a lot of the guys who are coming up today who DM me and they're like, dude, your brother meant so much to my career. Like, he said this to me, and it made me really get to the next level. Like, I get a lot of DMs like that, you know, which is really, really cool. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Jonny Candido. No H, Jonny. My real name's Jonathan. I don't know why people put the H in John. So just Jonny, JonnyCandido. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram.
Well, I want to thank you, Jonny, for your time. It's been a very enjoyable discussion. We'll keep in touch and hopefully do this again.
Okay. Yes.
Well, fans, that's it for this edition of the Cheap Productions Pro Wrestling Podcast. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe and hit that notification button so you keep on top of all the great content we have coming your way. Until next time, for Jonny Candido, I'm Jack Kilby. Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much for watching this video. Please subscribe to the channel if at all possible.